So I'm just making this video to show some tips for troubleshooting electric motors. This particular one came out of my table saw. I went to use the saw today and for whatever reason it didn't turn on. I was sort of suspicious of this motor initially because for the last probably started 6 months ago. It's just out of nowhere. It just started it worked, but it randomly slowed down and speed up. I checked everything I could think of, different outlets and circuits and breakers, and nothing seemed to give any hints of what the issue was. I did dig into the motor and the breaker, into the saw itself, into the breaker and the motor and the saw and the switch. All that stuff looked fine. The motor seemed fine. It was still working, but I figured I don't know what the issue was. There was something up when. So today I checked the switches and saw that stuff again because that was a simpler fix if that was the issue, a switch or whatever. Anyways, what happened, I ended up throwing out the motor, took the switches apart, and it did a continuity test with my multimeter. Not this particular one, but same thing. But anyways, you should have a connection through the motor, and I didn't have that. So then usually on these motors, any power tool, most any anyways, they use what's called the universal motor. Drills, table saws, anything like that, usually it's called a universal because it will run on AC or DC. But basically say you have the hot coming in here, it's going to go into one of the windings on the outside of the motor. If you can, I don't know if you'll be able to see them, but there's little windings on each side there. And then it'll go through the winding, then it'll hit one of the brush contacts. It'll go through this commutator and the rotor and everything there. It'll come out the other brush, and that'll go through the other winding, and then that'll come out your neutral wire, which would be the white. The green is just ground that's hooked to the chassis, or in this case into the stator coil windings. But so I start testing it, how to lead to the black, and in one of these, the easiest point to check for continuity to see if there's an issue is at the brushes, because they didn't have a circuit there. So, as you can hear, this brush has continuity. And in my case, what I ran to today, I put on the white wire, and on this brush holder, I had nothing. And what ended up happening, I tore the motor apart. Basically, at that point, it could have been the rotor or something like that, but the brushes were still fine. There's still a lot of carbon on those brushes, so I can still use those, so that wasn't the issue. So my thought was maybe there was a thermal interlock that blew inside those windings, which, if that was the case, it may not have even been fixable. But then I started digging around. I found a couple of spade terminals, which is like a flat piece of metal with the middle's like a flat piece of metal. The other one's got like a thing that slides over it. Anyways, when I checked those, continuity on those, they had continuity. So that made me then wonder, and one of them did come off the brush holder pretty easily. And it looked a little discolored, so I think that was the issue, is heating up and it was cutting in and out and arcing or something like that. So I was able to squeeze that back down, get a good connection, put it back on the brush holder, put the motor back together. It works as it should. One other thing you could do, if you think maybe your rotor is bad, you could put one lead of your multimeter on one brush and the other one on the other brush, and then push the brushes in too, and see if you have continuity. And if not, it may be okay, but just before you give the rotor a slow spin, because it might be in a weird spot that it's not getting a good connection. But if you spin the rotor and you do have a little connection, then you're probably okay in that case. But usually this was the simplest way to troubleshoot, was check from the outside points that I could access, which is the power in the brushes, because that's just removing these screw covers. So, but Dad told me there was something wrong inside the motor, and it took probably a half hour or so to fix. Most are just because the connections are way in the bottom here and they're hard to get to. So I just had to use long screwdrivers and pliers and stuff to try and get the connection back on. But luckily it came on and worked, so I just wanted to share some tips. Hopefully this will help somebody.